All right. Picking up where I left off. Hold on, let me fix the camera. I'm such an amateur at this shit. I can't. Okay, hold on. All right. I'm so unprofessional at this shit. Um, okay, so picking up where I left off, talking about the music I listen to over time. Hobson was big for me in high school, and then Hobson started blowing up, and he started working. He started building his Funk Volume record label with his friend Swizz, and then I think in like 2012 he brought on Dizzy Wright, and then later he would bring on Jaron Benton. But towards the end of high school, early college, which for me was 2010 or 2012, 2013, I was really into the Funk Volume movement that they had going on and the music that they would play. And that's what I was listening to a lot early on in college. And then in 2013, I found Logic, who Logic is huge right now. At the time, he did not have an album out. He was only doing mixtapes. So the reason I found out about Logic was because of the Double XL cover. And the reason I checked the Double XL cover was because Dizzy Wright was also on that cover. So I heard Dizzy Wright's freestyle first, and then I heard Logic's freestyle. And I was like, wow, this Logic guy sounds pretty dope. And then I checked him out and started listening to the mixtapes and videos he was coming out with at the time, right around the time he signed to Def Jam. And it's funny how that works, how I found out about Dizzy Wright through Hobson, then I found out about Logic through Dizzy Wright, and was really into that stuff. And then throughout college, which for me was 2012 to 2016, I wasn't checking out a ton of new stuff. I was hearing different rap stuff here and there, getting a little bit nostalgic for like the old Chris Brown stuff, like the 2006, 2007 Chris Brown, like Wall to Wall and With You and songs like that. And I was finding new songs here and there, pretty much anything except like country music, and so I'm not really a fan of country music. And then the music that was popular when I was in high school, which was 2008 to 2012, was a lot of these female artists, and I promise you I'm not sexist, but I could not stand a lot of these female artists because they were just talking about stuff that I could not relate to. They were talking about, like, let's all have a good time and let's party and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yo, this is not my reality day to day. I'm not going to parties and stuff. Or like, let's, throw your lighters up in the sky. I'm just making up lyrics right now. This is what, this kind of music that was popular when I was in high school. Your Katy Perry, your Kesha, your Lady Gaga, your Taylor Swift. This stuff that I was just like, okay, like, this music's kind of cool, but you're acting like this is the best music in the world right now, and I don't think it is. Like, I was like, they're not saying anything with that much depth compared to these other rappers that I'm listening to. So that was why I did not like that kind of music in high school, as well as like the EDM, like, I don't know, just the really auto-tuney stuff. I couldn't stand the Black Eyed Peas. I was like, okay, this music's kind of cool, but again, it just sounds like very surface level, auto-tuney kind of bullcrap. So anyway, just a little rant right there on the people I didn't like in high school, the artists I didn't like. going back to college, I was listening to artists here and there that I was getting into, um, and then I found Kehlani, for example, and she's a female. She's a very young female singer. I think she's like 23 right now, maybe 22. So at the time I found her, she was like 20, and she was like the first female artist ever in my life where I knew like 15 or 20 songs by her. Um, or maybe not even that much, just like 10 songs by her. Because again, I wasn't into the stuff that was popular when I was in high school. The Taylor Swift, the Katy Perry, the Kesha, the Lady Gaga. I wasn't really into that stuff. So, Kehlani was like the first one that I found where I was like, wow, like she's got such a beautiful voice, and she, she came from kind of a rough childhood, and like you can hear in her voice like how beautiful and how meaningful she sounds and stuff. So I really liked Kehlani. And I was hearing some rap stuff here and there, and then this is where things get interesting. I found for the last like 10 years of my life, I was listening to rap music mostly from like 2006 to 2016. And then in the last 2.5 years, I found this whole other thing of music that I probably should have known about before, but I didn't. And I regret that I didn't really get into this stuff sooner. So, right around the time I graduated college, which was May 2016, I found this band called Trust Company. And they had a song called Downfall, which was in a video game I used to play when I was a little kid called Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, which was a skateboarding game with Disney characters. That sounds crazy, but yeah, I remember playing that game, and Downfall by Trust Company was in the game, and I liked that song. And that game came out in 2002, so for 14 years, from 2002 to 2016, I was listening to Downfall a lot, but I never bothered to check out the rest of their music, and I was just scrolling through my music one time, and I was like, let me check out Trust Company a little bit more, and this was right around the time I graduated college, and I was like, whoa, I had like a total epiphany where I was like, this is what music sounded like in the early 2000s, and it doesn't sound like this anymore. Like the rock style that's coming out today does not sound like this. I can tell that they were very inspired by Linkin Park, or maybe them and Linkin Park were making the same music at the same time and they didn't even know what the other one was doing. But Trust Company, their music sounds pretty similar to Hybrid Theory, Meteora, because just in terms of the lyrics are very emo, and they're very like personal, and they talk about like struggles and tensions and depression and feelings within yourself. Like that's what Trust Company was talking about. And then so that's very similar to Linkin Park, and the style of the music, the guitar and the way the instruments sounded was also like Linkin Park, where it had this like nu metal sound. It's not crazy guitar solos, it's just like it's like these simple guitar riffs. But that's, I found out more about Trust Company, and I was like, man, like I'm really into this stuff. This is what music used to sound like, and it doesn't sound like this anymore. I started thinking about people like my high school tennis coach, who was born in the mid-'80s, and my sister's husband, who was born in '85, and like this person who I look up to on the internet who was born in '84, and I look at these people and I think, And these people have, like, when I found out about Trust Company and I brought it up, these people were like, how do you know about Trust Company? That was like a band I was really into in high school, and I forgot all about them because like they just kind of like disappeared, and that style of music disappeared. And I just got so into Trust Company. I in 2016 I made a bunch of, I took my favorite songs of theirs from their 3 albums, which their 3 albums came out 2002, 2005, 2011. They since haven't made music since 2011, and it looks like they're probably not going to be putting any more music out, but I hope they do at some point. But yeah, their first album from 2002 is called The Lonely Position of Neutral. The Lonely Position of Neutral. I highly recommend that if you are still a fan of the like Hybrid Theory, Meteora style of Linkin Park, because it's a similar kind of style except no rapping in Trust Company. So that is what, I made a CD mix of like 15 Trust Company songs from their 3 different albums, and I was like listening to that in my car in 2016 over and over and over again. I had so many CD mixes that I had made, and every time it would try to switch to the next CD mix, I was like, I just want to hear Trust Company again. I was just so into it because that was like my gateway drug into early 2000s music, which I'm going to talk more about here in a second. Because after Trust Company, I started getting into other bands. I got into Linkin Park at the end of 2016. And growing up, I was always I enjoyed Linkin Park, but I was never that into them. I knew their singles, their big hits, but I was never that into them. And then the specific video I saw on YouTube that really got me into Linkin Park was their AOL Sessions video. So, which was them performing live in a studio, so they were not in front of an audience, they were just performing live, and they played like 5 different songs that were very diverse from each other, and I found Linkin Park, and I was just like, man, these guys are like so cool, and I started watching live footage of them from the 2000, 2001, 2002, and like seeing how much energy they brought on stage and the confidence, and they had so much fun. It's like they were just as big of a fans of their music as their own fans were, and they just showed that on stage. And they did all this cool stuff where they would dye their hair, especially Chester and a little bit of Mike too. They would dye their hair different colors and stuff, and I was like, man, this is so cool that they're doing this stuff and just being real and not being afraid to talk about their emotions. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So I got into Trust Company around April, May 2016. Then I got into Linkin Park at the end of 2016. Then around New Year's that year, 2016 into 2017, I remember I heard the song Way Away by Yellowcard. And I was like, wow, I really dig this. Like, this is so good to me. And then I listened to their other singles off Ocean Avenue, which are Only One, Way Away, and Ocean Avenue are the 3 singles off the album. I was like, wow, this is like really, really cool. And again, before that point, which was like less than 2 years ago, I never really knew much about pop punk music at all. Because when I was a little kid, I was not exposed to it. And then I really got into rap music when I was like in middle school, high school. So I just didn't know much at all about pop punk. And from the little pop punk I did hear in the 2000s, I was not into that stuff when I was in middle school, high school, because I couldn't really get over the nasally voice of the pop punk bands like Blink-182, Simple Plan. I couldn't get over that nasally voice. And so I assumed all pop punk bands had that nasally voice, but I've since learned that that's not the case, but that's just what I thought 10 years ago when I was in middle school, high school. Anyway, So around New Year's 2016 and 2017, I really got into Yellowcard, and then I really got into Sum 41, which before 2017, like all through my life up until 2017, like a year or like 2 years ago, I had no idea who Sum 41 was. And I was like, wow, like in bands like Yellowcard and Sum 41, these singers don't have nasally voices. And so I really got into that kind of sound. I started listening a little bit to The Starting Line. They got the song The Best of Me, which is like a really good song. I don't know too many other songs by them, but The Best of Me is like one of my favorite pop punk songs. That and Way Away by Yellowcard. So I really started getting into the pop punk. I found Alistair, which is a pop punk band that came up in the early 2000s. They're from Chicago. I found Mest, which is a pop punk band from Blue Island, Illinois. Again, they came out in like 2002, 2003. And I was like, wow, and I like these guys too because like they sometimes have the nasally voice thing, but like now I get it. So now I'm like, I can get over that. And, you know, they're from like the Chicagoland area and I live in Indiana, you know, in the Chicagoland area. So they felt like the home team for me. These bands that grew up in Illinois, in Chicagoland area. So again, in the last couple years, found Trust Company, then I found Linkin Park, then I found Yellowcard, then I found Sum 41, then I found Alistair, then I found Mest, and you know, so 2017, I really started getting into the pop punk stuff, and then this year, at the beginning of this year, I found Rage Against the Machine, and I tried to get into Rage Against the Machine a couple years ago, but the music just sounded too dated to me, and I don't know, like, I was like, I can appreciate this, but it's like dated, and all the political stuff was just going over my head that Rage Against the Machine does, so I was like, I don't really get this. But then this year, like at the beginning of this year, I started watching live footage of them on YouTube, and I was like, wow, like, for the same reasons I started getting into Linkin Park, I'm now getting into Rage Against the Machine, which is on stage they just show so much energy and confidence, and they're having so much fun on stage, and they're being real with their fans. Like, you know, they look like regular people. They don't, you know, and there's nothing wrong with like dressing up, you know, I don't know, with like the emo kind of look and going all out with your image, but these guys look just like average people, you know, which made it a little more relatable to me because I don't feel like, I don't dress up like I'm super emo necessarily or goth or whatever. I was never like doing that kind of stuff, so it's cool to see like regular looking guys on stage just going off, just like going crazy with their music. And as someone like me who is trying to make music, which I'm not going to talk too much about right now because that's not the topic of this video, but as someone who's trying to create music, those people are inspiring. To see them on the come up and to see them kill, like have such a stage presence and just kill it on stage. So, you know, that's, you know, I guess not a brief, this is a long ass video, a history of me listening to music over time, what I was really into. Again, very quick recap. When I was a little kid, I listened to the music that my parents played, which on my dad's side and my mom's side too was Peter Gabriel, REM, The Police, Bruce Springsteen, John Mellencamp, Squeeze, a little bit of Sugar Ray, a little bit of the Beatles, all that stuff that came out before the 21st century that my parents had been playing around the house. Got into like the WWE music in the mid 2000s. I got into rap. Got into Lil Wayne, Drake, Eminem, Hopsin, Logic, Yellow Wolf, Tech Nine, all these different rappers. You know, and then I got into I'm even into boy bands a little bit, like, when I was in like middle school, I wasn't listening to boy bands, but I found them a little bit in high school and then started getting into it in college as well. And then in the last couple of years, listening to Trust Company and Linkin Park and Yellowcard and Sum 41 and Alistair and Mest and Rage Against the Machine. Up until now, those are like the bands that I've been listening to and the rap artists and stuff, just in recap. And also, like, just like anyone else around my age, I was really into like soundtracks to Disney movies and stuff. When I was in like 5th, 6th grade, I did a report on Phil Collins in like it was either elementary school or middle school music class. When I was like 11, 12 years old, I did a report on Phil Collins. And all my classmates were thinking, like, who the hell's Phil Collins? Because we're all 11 or 12-year-old kids at a time when Phil Collins was not relevant anymore. But I knew about Phil Collins from Tarzan. And so, just listening to, like, the Disney soundtracks and stuff like that. So, all in all, that's, like, what I've been listening to for the course of my life. And, there's so many big bands that everyone talks about that I don't know much about. I've never really listened to Slayer before. I've never listened to Metallica like that much. I hear a song every once in a while, but, And then as far as newer artists go, I haven't listened to Post Malone. I haven't listened to a lot of big artists that have come out in recent years, but what I've listed so far is what I am listening to. So that's basically it. Very long video. I split this up into 2 parts. There was a part 1. This is part 2. This is going up on my YouTube channel, which is Ollie511. This is like my first discussion-based video in the last like 5 or 6 months that I'm doing. So it feels refreshing to just be talking on camera again.